Yo, what is going on, everybody? It is Tuesday night, a gorgeous Tuesday night to talk Flyers on Flyers Talk A2D. You know what that means. So tonight we got a lot to talk about. Alexei Kolosov and the drama continues and continues. Lots to talk about there. And how about it? The slowest point of the off season, we have a bunch of moves to talk about too in the second half of the show. So, boys, we got a lot to do here in an hour. So, y'all watching at home, you know what to do. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn on those notifications, hit that share, hit that retweet if you're on Facebook and Twitter. And it's time to talk some puck. Let's go.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of Flyers Talk A2D. I am Matt Sensuti, along with the Darkwing, Brian Daly.
It is a beautiful, unseasonably cool day here in, it feels like September. It's still August.
I know, right? I felt like watching a horror movie today because of the cool weather.
It's August. I'm wearing a hoodie. What is wrong with this right now?
And we have the broken one, Rob Povia.
I'll take 72-degree weather any time of the week, twice on Sunday, for sure.
Preach, homie.
And today we are brought to you by, as always, the Dr. Paul Vidal over at Specialized Physical Therapy. If you have any aches and pains that are bothering you to the point where it's kind of making it hard for you to, do your job or, maybe go outside on a beautiful day like today and go on a nice little walk, or maybe a bike ride or take a little hike on a park or what have you. Whatever you would like to do out in the nice, cool weather that we had today. If there's something that's causing it to be not so enjoyable, go hit up the doc. Make an appointment at specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Head on over to Cherry Hill or Burlington, New Jersey. He's got great teams in both locations. You will feel as good as new. You can get back to enjoying days like this outside, doing whatever it is you like to do. And on top of that as well, your boss may not be all that mad at you for slowing down production because you'll be back to being efficient at your job. So trust me, the benefits are absolutely worth it. So specializedphysicaltherapy.com. No more aches and pains. Dr. Paul Vidal. And the poll question for today, Danny Briere and the Flyers will cave in and let Alexei Kolosov go back to Russia. Agree or disagree? Obviously, the Kolosov issue has continued to haunt the Flyers, and it seems like Kolosov is still determined to head back on home to the motherland. So the question is, should the Flyers just say, fine, it's a lost cause, let's move on? Or should they stand and say, hey, kid, why don't you just give it a shot? You might be surprised, and you might actually find yourself a spot here in Philadelphia. Where do you guys stand on that, gentlemen? Do you agree or disagree that the Flyers should just cut ties and run, or keep them around?
I'll jump in real quick because I was salivating when I read this poll question. I don't think they're going to cave in. I disagree. I mean, Danny B is very understanding of Kolosov's situation, coming over here late last season and having troubles adjusting. He said but the key thing is he said on the Nasty Knuckles podcast with friend of the show Riley Cote and Derek Stedelmeyer, we're hearing all these rumors. We haven't had a full or clear answer at this point. But if he wants to play hockey, he has to come over here. He's under contract with the Flyers. He's not allowed to play anywhere else. We want him here. So we'll see. In our mind, he has to report. The way I look at it is that Kolosov was already on loan last season. So to be on loan again to Minsk just gives further delays. That's going to hurt his transition to the North American game, and he signed that 3-year ELC at this point. He's committed to the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, the goal last season was to get his beak wet and then fully rear the 22-year-old netminder in his first full year with the Flyers. This season, boys, I see this battle going into the season for sure, because Briere, Jonesy, and Torts are all stubborn SOBs. And there's been some other news that broke today, Brian.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of news breaking over the last couple days, but yeah, it's tough because there's a lot of unknowns in this story. I mean, we're getting little bits here and there. I understand where Kolosov is coming from. I saw LJ's comment as he dropped it and saying, "Don't risk the relations with Russia." It's a tough situation because it could get to the point where it is with Yaroslav over in Nashville, and get to the point where it's just like, just you don't want me here. That like I don't want to be here. Put me in a situation where I can be successful. Put me in a situation where I'm going to be able to communicate, not feel like an outsider. That's a lot of his issue is, there's nobody on the Phantoms that speaks Russian. There's no other Russian players. Michkov has the privilege of having Zamula with him, and that kind of makes things a little bit easier. Fedotov is up there as well.
Also, Michkov's family is here.
True. That's another one. Kolosov doesn't have any of that. And he's in a situation where he's kind of roadblocked too. Like he wants the road to the NHL, and I just feel like he doesn't necessarily think he's going to get that in Philadelphia. Like there's so many different variables to the story. I think for right now, I honestly think for right now it might be smart to loan him back to the KHL before his relationship with this organization, this city, this fan base sours to the point where he doesn't even want to play here anymore. You know, I don't necessarily think it's a situation where he wants to leave Philadelphia and not be a part of this organization, but I think he wants a situation where he can feel familiar, feel comfortable, feel like he's a part of something and not feel like an outcast because of the fact that he can't communicate. He can't bond with anybody on the roster because he can't speak English and none of those guys can speak Russian. It's a tough situation for this kid to be in. So if I'm Briere, I'd say, okay, listen, we'll loan you back. Maybe figure out a way to get his family over here too. Or at least wait till he has an opportunity to crack the NHL roster and let him be with Fedotov, Zamula, Michkov, guys that he can communicate, guys that he can be with, guys that he can feel comfortable and gain relationships with, where he can gain the confidence to play the NHL game and be the goalie that, quite frankly, we all think that he can be. Like this kid could be a starter in the NHL.
Yeah, it's a interesting situation that we are currently looking at right now with Kolosov. As for how I feel about it, I mean, I would say unless you truly feel the situation is completely unsalvageable, and Danny doesn't sound like he feels like it is. He still feels like there's a way to fix this problem. So I will say disagree. I don't think they'll cave in. I think Danny will try he will exhaust every measure possible, I think, to try and get him comfortable to where he's now ready and willing to play in an orange and black jersey. I think he'll exhaust every measure before it's time for him to finally just throw his hands up and say, fine, he's just dead set determined not to play here in North America. He just doesn't want to play. And, that's really the issue because, and I guess the final the final straw would be, okay, fine, you don't want to play here. Would you want to play somewhere else? That would be the final straw that you throw out there. And if he says no to that, then you really do have to cut ties with him completely and move on, because he doesn't even want to go to another place. So you can't even trade him to another club. He just doesn't want to be in North America altogether. But until we definitively have that figured out, and if Danny don't know, then we definitely won't know. So at the end of the day, I would say no, disagree. I don't think he'll cave in. He'll exhaust every possible measure before it's all said and done.
Well, I mean, let's face fact, boys. We're dealing with a lot of conjecture. To Brian's point, this young man does not speak a lick of English, so it's not exactly like they can call him and have a conversation, being like, "Hey, what's going on?" So there's, it's all through the agents. And the big news today was that it was established that, Kolosov sought out new representation. He changed agents. So in terms of what does this mean for me, I think maybe his former agent, J.P. Barry of CAA Hockey, was trying to talk him into honoring his contract with the Flyers due to also representing both Fedotov and Michkov, while Kolosov's new representation that we found out today in Dan Milstein of Gold Star Sports Management Group is being more supportive of his desire to remain in the KHL just to get his business, right? And to me, that screams that it is fully, even though he's not coming out and saying that Kolosov's intention is to stay and play for Dynamo Minsk of the KHL. I hear to the commenter's point, and to your point, Brian, that you loan him back, you keep good relations. The thought crossed my mind too. We've been working so well. Let's keep this where Philadelphia Flyers have a distinct advantage in the NHL, but I think you could still do that and also honor contracts. I think the longer that, Briere holds to his guns, it'll feel like Mintz will indeed owe the Flyers one. And I think in turn that will reap rewards moving forward. Because if he stays in KHL, yes, he can still develop and then come over here, as we saw Fedotov come at a later age. But the longer that you delay, and he already came over to make that shift just to get his beak wet, and they had full plans. Briere also said this on the Nasty Knuckles podcast, that they had full intentions of building a support system around him. That was just, hey, you played a full season, play a couple games here, get a little taste of where you're signing. You sign your 3-year ELC, right? Next year, Michkov's over here too. Just because he's with the Flyers, you don't think he's going to help him out? Hell yeah, he will. So really, this is just, a slap in the face of what was being planned by this organization. So I think you need to stick to your guns for respect, and that will still keep good business relations with the KHL. And, particular in this case, Dynamo Minsk.
Yeah, I mean, my thought process is similar to that. My big thing is, technically the Flyers are the KHL one, because they allowed Michkov to come to Philadelphia as early as they did, let him out of his contract. I think the Flyers need to do Kolosov this solid and let him go back. Let him go back. Let him regain some confidence. Let him regain some comfortability with playing hockey and not let him be homesick. And I get, like, the longer you're away, because trust me, I've been there. Not to Russia, but moving to North Carolina, being homesick, being away from your family, having nobody. It's hard. It's extremely hard to go somewhere new. You have no idea where anything is. You have no support system whatsoever. You're by yourself. You're on your own. It's difficult. Not only just being 6.5, 7 hours away. Imagine having your family on the other side of the world.
It is a tall task. It's a tall task, Brian. I get it. But I just think if he goes back, you're never seeing him. It's not like the other situation with the other goaltender that we loaned.
Yeah, it's true. I mean,
the Flyers
you're running that risk. But what's nice is Flyers actually have a decent pipeline of goalie right now. So if you do loan him back and he never comes back, Move on to the next one.
So
Go out and get Oscar out from Nashville. Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but that's. I mean, professional hockey is a business at the end of the day. I mean, it's a game for us. We have a distinct privilege here, boys, that once a week we get to talk about this great game.
True.
Game. End of the day, I mean, the three of us, we all know. The guys watching, we all know this is a business at the end of the day. Sometimes you got to do what's best for your players. Sometimes you got to do what's best for your employees. So
I'm gonna say, Swoopy's asking like, who was the center wing guy Flyers let go back to Russia 4 or 5 years ago?
Oh.
I'm trying to remember.
Remember what I had for lunch, and he's asking me to remember something from 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh man,
it's not Corbin Knight because he just signed with the KHL team and after he became a free agent, he just left altogether. And he's also not Russian; he was Canadian. So, I'm drawing a blank right now on that, to be honest with you. But this is something interesting, though, that Priz brought up. He said teams should start hiring former players from other countries to work in the system to help with the transitions for these kids. Finland, Russia, Sweden, Germany, etc. It is an interesting idea that, you could have former players that were in your organization who know the organization and know the city and know the place that they're going to. And to have the opportunity to work with these younger kids from those specific countries. For example, the Flyers could go and grab a former Russian player for them and have him essentially kind of get them comfortable with the new environment that they're in, and get them comfortable with, like, this is Philadelphia, this is what the culture is, this is what the sports teams are like, this is what the fans are like at the end of the day. It's an interesting idea. I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea. I think that definitely would make transitions a lot smoother between younger players from other countries. I'm just trying to think of who the Flyers would go grab immediately for Russia. Because, well, you could go get Nikolai Zherdev. He was here for 1 year. His whole 1 year in 2011. Vorobyev. That's who it was. Yes, I'm remembering now. I remember Vorobyev.
He asked a question. He had the answer. You hustled us.
But you know what? Here's the thing, though. I do remember that, and that was a big deal. Vorobyev did want to go back, and he had that one. But to be fair, too, he had been in the Flyers organization for a while. He had that one big training camp, and then after that, he just kind of floundered. And that, of course, was also, I'm going to say right now, for a lot of the prospects that wound up not working out for the Flyers, I'm also holding the Flyers half blame for this because of all the shit that was going on behind the scenes. So it's like, okay, we're going to do 50-50 on this one because it wasn't very stable back here.
Soupy, I'll be honest, I was going to say German Rusev, and I would have been wrong.
But that would have been a good one, too.
Yeah.
I want to jump back
more recently.
Right.
That was. I want to jump back to Priz's comment here. I'm just going to bring it up, Maddie, since I had that option.
Not bragging or anything.
Not bragging. It's not like I'm on the back end or anything. It's not like yeah, exactly. I'm actually on board with this. I think it's a great idea, and I absolutely think that it would help. 1,000%. Like, not just a translator, but like foreign relations, I guess you would call it, where you bring in a former NHL player that is clearly not from North America,
right,
to be not just a guy to show somebody around, but just to kind of be an ambassador for the organization too.
Think about this. What if after he's done playing, this would be a little ways down the line, and there's some future talent that's just sitting in like a country like France that no one ever thinks about for hockey, because whoever really thinks of a main star from hockey coming out of France? What if you get Belmar and you just say, hey, Bellemar's from France. He played for the Flyers for a couple seasons. You grab him, and he finds a great talent that's just sitting there the whole time that you would have never realized because he's playing in a country that no one ever really bothers to scout because it's not a country known for producing predominant NHL talents at the end of the day. Things like that could possibly come out of things like this, where you have, wow, this makes total sense now. I mean, think about it. Think of a German player that's played for the Flyers that could go over to Germany and really help foster talent that comes out of there. And Germany is a good hotbed for prospects, and I think you could get more because we've only really, I mean, the best player to come out of Germany is currently playing in the league right now. So you might have future phenoms at the end of the day that possibly come out of Germany.
Also, another quote from Briere. They said that they had people checking on him every day. Guys were trying to get to him, but he's shy. He didn't speak a lot of English. So going into the season, we wanted to help him out and put him in the best possible position to succeed. And the plan moving forward in this full year was to indeed, because remember I brought that up the other day. Why didn't they have somebody in place like a coach, that at least could have a compadre, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he played a full season already and the playoffs for the KHL. So he was just coming over here for a couple games, just so it wasn't the first time when he came here for the first full season. He could get like a precursor to it, and the kid just jumped the shark. And if that's the psyche, maybe you do need to trust the goalie pipeline, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, like, I love that Briere's trying. Like, he's doing his hardest. Like, there's only so much that this dude can do as a GM. Like, he really, his hands are tied to an extent. He can bring him over. He can make him as comfortable as possible. But what else more can he really do except for what he's done? And he wants him here. Like, it's not like he's sitting here saying, like, I mean, we could take him or leave him. Da 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 da. No, he's come out and said we want him here.
So here's something that's interesting to think about. What if this becomes a trend, like with younger players who come over from other countries that just don't feel like they're fitting in North America? They don't really like it, and they want to go back home. If this becomes a trend, do you think the NHL takes a look at this and says, okay, let's implement a rule that if a prospect decides they don't want to be with that organization and they want to sever ties, that the option's there, but in exchange, the organization gets something back in return for severing those ties? I mean, do you think the NHL would look at that if this starts to become something that's more routine every season with organizations in the league?
Kind of like where you have it in place where guys can go play in the OHL, or in terms of this would just be another extension of that. Is that what you mean, Matt?
I mean, in the sense like the player just really doesn't want to be on the team, and just doesn't feel like he's comfortable where he's at. I don't know if it would necessarily work the same way with American and Canadian players, but I'm talking about, if a player's coming from, say, Europe or Russia or, another country that's across the pond, would the NHL take a look at this situation and we got Trump Malakovic over here. Anyway.
Mr. Negadelphian himself.
Well, it goes right into what I was about to say, Manny, is that no, I absolutely don't think the NHL should do that at all. Because you know what? Kolosov has 6.5 million reasons why he should grin and bear it.
I got you. I'm just saying, if this becomes something that we start to see, and it's not just a Flyers thing, that this starts to become a problem everywhere that you see it, it's like, well, should the NHL step in and do something where at least the organization itself can get compensated or get something in return because they lost a prospect, and if they do an investigation and everything to determine that, hey, they did everything they could, the GM went out of his way to try and make this prospect feel comfortable in his environment, he still chose to go back, then with that decision officially in place, the NHL then can take steps to figure out something to get back to the organization because they did everything they could. It's not their fault. The prospect said, done, I'm out. That's not their fault at the end of the day.
You see,
I know it can be a slippery slope if we start going down this path, but it's just, do you think the NHL could consider that option?
I'll say this. I agree with half of it. I agree with if they do decide to go back, whether it be the Kolosov situation, the Kovalchuk situation, like they should be able to get compensated for it. I agree with that. There should be something in place that allows a team, say the Flyers, to get reimbursed for losing a prospect. I don't think the NHL should really go out of their way to do anything to help keep these guys here. You either want to be or you don't.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying
no. I know. I'm just saying
that.
like you want to be here or you don't. Like it's like what Keith Jones and Danny Briere said during the Cutter trade. You either want to be here or you don't. If you don't want to be here, we'll get you out of here.
Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. You know what I mean? I love that philosophy. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, I talk about the polar opposite of Matvei Michkov, who wanted to be here so bad, and it happened.
Yes, exactly. And this isn't a slate at Cutter. This isn't a slate at Alexei. This is just, you don't want to be here. Don't be here.
Right.
There's not any job in the world where anybody can make you do what you do. You're in control of that.
Right.
I'm in control. I go to the hockey store every day, not necessarily because, I mean, obviously I have to. I got to pay rent, but if I don't want to be there, I wouldn't be there.
Well,
and I know it's kind of different, but like I know it's probably like not the best analogy. But
I mean, it's kind of like the idea of just like, okay, you look at it from the two different perspectives. From our perspective, we go and do our day jobs, right? We get up, we go to our day jobs, and do we always want to do our day jobs? Of course not. There are days we just want to stay in bed and sleep in, wake up and do whatever it is we like to do. But we do it because we have to. Because if we no call, no show, that's it. You're gone. And you have to face that reality, right? Whereas you look at it from their perspective is you actually have the ability you have a talent that is being compensated for in a sport that many people love watching and enjoying. So the question then comes in, how, it's a give and take situation with that. Whereas in our case, it's, you got to do it. You got no choice at the end of the day. In theirs, it's more like, how much give do you give and how much take do you get? Like where's the balance here of how much do you give to the athlete? How much can they dictate to you? And how much do you dictate to them? Because that's the real question there. Because, obviously the NHL's had their fair share of egos and, narcissistic people who've come into the league who have, found a way to make themselves a nice little bit of cash. Not a whole lot of friends, but a nice bit of cash at the end of the day. And
I mean,
and they've bullied some teams. They've bullied some GMs at the end of the day to get what they want.
Okay, Sean Avery. I mean,
I think you got some allergies there going. You got to work on that.
It's the weather change. It's just
take some Claritin or Benadryl, brother. You really need it. All the same, though, I definitely think that you really find yourself in that position of how much is too much. How far is too far? That's really the question we're asking here. Like how far is too far for Danny? And really the only person who can answer that is Danny. And that's pretty much the gist of it, isn't it?
So there's kind of another reason why I think it would be a good idea just to let him go back for another year is you keep him here, right? Goes through the Phantoms, great season. what happens if he gets to the NHL level and becomes a cancer in the locker room because Danny didn't let him go back? Creates a bit of a rift in the relationship between those two. Then he becomes a toxic cancer in the locker room. That ruined the locker room that they're building right now. So important that there's good vibes, good chemistry, good everything. It's so important that, maybe it is more important just let him go back for a year. But there's one thing that's more important than that. And that's hitting that like, that subscribe, and turning on those notifications and never missing anything that A2D has to offer.
You some bitch. I knew you were doing it too. I knew it was coming. I was just like, he's doing it. He's doing it.
No, but I will say for real, like, I mean everything that I said. It is important to kind of keep that culture in the locker room, creating any kind of toxic environment right now in a locker room full of young guys being started by a young guy. I feel like that doesn't end well. I feel like that's going to mean guys are going to want out. I look at the Rangers with Tony DeAngelo and Alex Georgiev. Caused a major rift. Guys got traded. Guys got released.
I mean,
by guys, I mean guy, and that was Tony.
But also on top of that as well, in this case, it would be even worse because you're going to come into direct line of fire for Torts, and that's not going to end well for you.
No.
So that's another thing you really don't want to have a problem with there.
You could ride the middle line, though, and it'll be respectable, where your whole intention in the back of their mind is, okay, if he ultimately wants to go back, we'll make it work. But until then, we expect him here. We want him here. We want you. You know what I mean? And he's keeping it positive. He's not he's been sympathetic to what the kid has expressed, right? And even if it goes into a little bit of the season, right, and it ultimately works out, like I said, Dynamo Minsk now owes us one.
Right. So I will say, as far as this situation goes, as it continues to evolve, I think we will definitely we get to know a lot about who you have in the front office and who you have as basically the runner of the organization through situations like this. And the way I see it is, it's like Danny seems to really be the perfect person to kind of handle a situation like this, because we all know GMs who would have not tolerated this at all and would have been not handled this situation even a little bit okay. They would have been like, imagine if Mike Keenan was still in the league and Kolosov tried this. Whew, that would end horribly for everybody involved, because Keenan probably would have been ready to put his foot in his ass. So that's how the situation would have gone down. Brian, are you okay? It looks like you have a haunting going on.
I'm not sure what is happening. There's people moaning outside. Sound like something came from my back room. Like, I have no idea what is going on right now.
You always have, even down in North Carolina, you had the guy in the background, remember?
Yeah.
You always got the background hooligans.
Out of nowhere.
I don't know, man. You got some interesting neighbors, no matter where you go.
Hey, listen, my neighbors are great. I got no issues. The guy under me, awesome. People next to me, no problems with them. They're pretty great. But what's the funniest thing is about that guy in North Carolina? I have no idea anybody heard it. And then they hear Don be like, what the hell was that? I'm like, you heard that? I barely heard that. And you heard that? He's from all the way across the other side of the complex. That shit was funny.
Oh, Teddy's saying, can we get Logan Cooley since Nolan Patrick was a bust only fair? I think that's good compensation for the Flyers. Don't you, Rob? I think that's a good compensation.
Yeah, I think that's only fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Logan Cooley, pack your bags. You're coming to Philadelphia, buddy.
6 to midnight. That's all I'm going to say.
And you're welcome, by the way, because who the hell wants to be in Utah? So,
real quick, can we, before we jump into the trade talk here, can we talk about how terrible that trade was? Probably the worst possible trade in hockey history. Nolan Patrick going to Vegas, Cody Glass going to wherever the hell he went, Nashville. And the Flyers getting Ryan Ellis. Talk about a fail for all three teams.
I know, man. No one won that deal. No one.
If you had to pick one, the Nashville one, because Cody Glass actually stayed on the ice.
And I forgot to mention also Phil Myers was also a part of that deal too.
Okay,
and I don't even think he dressed for the Predators. I think he wound up going to Tampa after that.
Mm-hmm.
So
mm-hmm.
Man. But yeah, Ryan Ellis, man. What a wonderful D-man he is. He'll be forever remembered for his illustrious 4-game career with the Philadelphia Flyers.
But I will say this, in respect for Ryan Ellis, dude, you never want to see anybody go out like that.
No.
You want to see them go out on their terms. This is not – I got nothing – my heart breaks for Ryan Ellis not being able to finish his career the way he wants to.
Yeah, it's kind of like Chris Pronger on a little bit more of a minor scale, but it's definitely painful to see that happen to an athlete, to get cut down when they're not ready to say goodbye.
But I will say, last thing before we move on here, Logan Cooley, 6 to midnight.
I will say,
so good.
I will say, Utah is going to have themselves quite a fun little start to their time in hockey. Maybe, who knows? Maybe the playoffs, maybe not. Maybe a little too ambitious, but they'll have some. But
they'll be there. I'm calling it.
Even if they still will have some young, very exciting players that'll be in their organization to start things out, which is a lot better than the other started. So,
I'm only bringing his name up because I know Dylan's not in the chat yet.
Oh, don't worry. He will.
I hope. No, but I want Dylan in the chat, though, for real.
Gotcha. As you send your beacon out to our buddy Dylan, our resident Flames fan, we now transition over to the NHL news and notes with some of the big things that happened. But before we dive into the other teams, let's talk about what's going on with the Flyers, because the Flyers did have to officially move on from a player, and that one being Ryan Johansson. Johansson came in on a trade last year, if I remember correctly, to the Philadelphia Flyers.
Sean Walker deal, right?
Yes. Did he play at all? I forget if he played. No, he
Walker
didn't even play.
Joe.
No. Yeah, I didn't even think he played because he was hurt, was he not?
Hurt.
Yeah. Anyway, well, apparently, if you were hoping that he would one day dress for the Flyers, that has been dashed. And if you were dreaming that, good for you, because I don't think I was. Anyway, so
nuts.
Apparently, he had a material breach in his contract. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I guess he gave out some sensitive information that maybe was a part of an NDA or something he isn't supposed to give out. I don't know. I don't know what the legal term is of that. But apparently, through that material breach, he has been put on waivers with the intent to be terminated, so he will no longer be in the Flyers organization. So, yeah. It's kind of a weird way to end your tenure with the franchise. I mean, he's not the first player to get put on waivers for his contract to be terminated. Out of all the reasons to be terminated for, this is probably one of the least offensive out of the history of it. So, what are your thoughts on this, guys?
Well, I'll jump in real quick and say that I think this stems from, the deal right when they made the Sean Walker. It was for the draft pick, right? And you'd eat the cash as you're rebuilding this organization. And their intention was to, put him on waivers and loan him to the Phantoms, keep him for reserve, for depth, right, for this team. And they couldn't do it because he came over injured. That was not disclosed as part of the deal, right? And nor did the player disclose it himself upon arriving to Philadelphia. They found out when they tried to waive him. That's when they found out that he couldn't, because he claimed to be injured when we traded for him. So we had him see the doctors, Briere said. They found an injury, so now we're going to be rehabbing. You can't send out a player who's injured, so he's going to be doing rehab until we don't know when. That's about all I could say at this time, or all I had to say. So he's back on our roster doing rehab and trying to get better. Now, this was back in March, right? And I think this is an extension of it that at this point, right, according to his agent, he's, still, in extensive rehab, had surgery for the hip, I believe. I think it was a hip injury.
Yep.
And so basically, I think that's where the material breach stems from, that things were not disclosed until they tried to make a legal transaction. The NHL said, no, you can't do that. This player's injured.
Ah.
Yep. I mean, that was kind of like my mindset. I was talking with some guys at work, and I'm just kind of like, what does that even mean?
Right.
Material breach? Like, what? Did he, like... I honestly kind of took it a little literally at first. I'm like, well, what did he do? What did he touch? No, I'm just kidding.
Did he reveal some secret documents he wasn't supposed to reveal in the Flyers' high office? Why does he have access to that?
Material breach? Who did he moon? Like, what is happening? No, but the Flyers legend, Ryan Johansson, I think this is actually a very smart move for the Flyers. Guy doesn't want to be in the organization. Again, we're bringing it back. We're going full circle here, guys. It is another guy who doesn't want to be here.
I will say this.
Full circle on the show. He's another guy who doesn't want to be here. But this is a situation that's a little bit... Sorry, man. I don't mean to keep cutting you off.
No, you're fine.
This is another situation where, for the Flyers, this is a guy who doesn't want to be here. Get him the F out. You free up $4 million. Let's go. This is going to open up a little bit more. I think this is going to open up a little bit more options for trade deadline. Should you be kind of wanting to do anything? I don't know.
I think
we'll go back to what Ted said, and maybe Logan Cooley.
But I think Priz is onto something here. He's saying, my guess, he logged into the PA system and started watching Pornhub on the scoreboard. I think Priz has solved the problem. I think he figured it out. That's what Ryan Joe was doing the whole time.
Oh, my.
Hey, listen.
That was my invite.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he was having a watch party or not. Maybe he just wanted to feel like he had the whole stadium to himself. So he just decided, you know what? I'm just gonna watch. I'm gonna jack it right here in the stadium. Why not?
Oh my God, that's funny, Pove. I just saw your comment in the chat. Totally didn't mean to do that.
I know exactly.
I mean, it's a tarnished relationship between Ryan Johansson and John Twittervalley. You don't really necessarily, again, want any kind of toxic environments in that locker room to destroy that culture. There were lies told. There was deception. I mean, it's a soap opera right now with that whole situation, but it's a situation that's no longer going to exist for the Flyers. Ryan Johansson will be a free agent in a couple days. And yes, I did want the invite. I'm a lonely man.
Person.
I'm just
There
kidding.
are very few opportunities you get to jack it with one of your favorite NHL players.
Whoa. First of all, no, we're going to back this up real quick. We're backing this up real quick. We're not even stopped moving forward yet. We're kicking in reverse. Nobody said anything about that.
Hey, listen, we're talking about him watching Pornhub on the scoreboard.
My favorite player in the NHL. You need to knock that shit off real quick. I like Ryan Johansson. I was a fan of his in Nashville, but that's a stretch.
It kind of sounds like you want to watch some Pornhub with him, but okay.
Who wouldn't want to hang out with an NHL player? I don't care what I'm doing. I'll have a dance if I have to.
Okay. All right, if that's what you want to do.
We'll go back to the garage days over at old school A2D and talk about doing blow off of hookers butt cracks. Like I hang out with Jeff Carter, Mike Richards. They're doing it. I might try it.
Chris saying Brian's new rule for you: 2 hands on screen at all times.
Is it weird that I got a ball in one hand?
Actually, I think it makes it better. Oh, so.
Oh, I feel drunk and I haven't even had a drink.
But I will say this, though. It's not only a soap opera with Rijo. It's a freaking soap opera everywhere you're going. I mean, look at the last season for the Flyers alone. Carter Hart gets officially charged with sexual assault. And then on top of that, then you
I'm
have...
sorry, what?
What?
Wait, who did what? Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
Caught up.
And then on top of that, you
My bad.
had Cutter Gauthier doesn't want to be here, so he gets traded to Anaheim. Then you have Kolosov not really being a big fan of being over here right now. And then you got Rigel watching Pornhub on the scoreboard and getting his ass eliminated from the organization. That last part was a joke.
Speculation.
That's just speculation. We don't
true.
really know that for a fact, but still, it's just been reported. But anyway,
I mean,
supposedly,
allegedly,
supposedly.
Either way, though, it's still ridiculous, man. Look at all the shit that's been going on in the background. Now my thought is like, wait a minute, did we get some stability in the organization, or did we just get more chaos? Because it sounds like we just got more at the end of the day. Good Lord.
Oh yeah. But
well, the recent NHL trade market's been chaos.
Yes, it has been.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they were all watching the Olympics, and then there was a flurry of activity the minute closing ceremonies.
They realized, oh crap, that's right. Let's start making some trades.
Right. Season's coming up, boys.
Yeah, it is.
So St. Louis just got a hell of a lot. Well, I wouldn't say a hell of a lot, but St. Louis definitely got better.
And with that, why don't we transition on over, ladies and gentlemen? As Lilya was saying, it will go to arbitration. And so, gentlemen, to the trade notes around the NHL. We might as well start with the St. Louis Blues, Bryce, since you decided to bring them up so politely. Why don't you start it off for us?
I always do it wrong. No, I'm just kidding. So I love it. And Doug Armstrong is under some heat for what he did, but can't blame him for throwing 2 offer sheets at Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. 2 young players that were their offers were matched or not matched today. And they're now the 2 newest members of the St. Louis Blues. Love this. It adds a little bit of youth into the organization, some depth on the defensive blue line. And Broberg, who could be a top 4 defenseman for the Blues now. They could definitely use the help back there. Could definitely use a little bit of shot of there's no funny way to say it. So I'm just going to say it. Shot of youth. So love it for St. Louis. I think they got a little bit better. I think Edmonton got a little bit worse, but Edmonton also kind of dug their grave with 2 other moves. What was it, 2 days ago? So it is what it is. I think this was great. I think Doug Armstrong's getting some shit for no reason. If Edmonton didn't want to lose these guys, match the offer or give them a better one. That's what the offer sheets are for.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, they get ready. I think it's all about the Edmonton was over the cap, right? And we don't know what's going on with the pending Vander Kane, long-term IR. Is he going to remain on there? So that'll keep him under. Or if he's going to play for them, then you're way over and you got to shed. Because, I mean, they also traded defenseman Cody Ceci along with a 3rd-round pick in the 2025 draft for Eberson and a 4th-round pick in the 2025 Cody Ceci along with a 3rd-round pick in the 2025 draft for Eberson and a 4th-round pick in 2025 for Padokkanen. Sorry about that. To get a forward to replace Broberg and Holloway, who they lost. So, I mean, is this a smart move by their new GM Stan Bowman, who has a lot to prove? Let's face facts, coming over from that whole Chicago scandal. So, to me, I'm surprised the Oilers let Broberg go, who in the playoffs, he looked like he could really fill a top 4 pairing. And now their blue line gets weaker, and we've said that's been the Oilers' Achilles heel. They get a little younger, but still you lose Cody Ceci as well, who's a vet in this league. I could see not matching Holloway's offer sheet since the 2020 first-round pick has failed to really come to fruition. And he may not get the proper opportunity here in Edmonton, but he'll definitely get such an opportunity now in St. Louis.
Yeah. But I mean, it's okay. Cody Cece's only going to the San Jose Sharks. Ooh, okay. Well, hey, who knows? Maybe Cody Cece will elevate his play on a bad Sharks team, and he'll get traded midway through the year, like Anthony Duclair. But
That's wishful thinking.
right.
I'll be honest with you. Like in this whole situation, like those two trades were to me the nails on the head that those two guys are gone. And a lot of it is I don't know if even with those two deals, you've freed up enough money to bring back Broberg. Because Broberg got almost $5 million over what was it, 4 years? That's
2 year.
2
2
years.
year 9.16 mil, yeah.
That's a tough one to kind of have to take care of. But I mean, you're getting a 24-year-old defenseman who's not making nearly as much, who has an opportunity to really kind of have a low pressure play in Edmonton now. He can kind of just hang out in the third pairing and develop a little bit. I mean, Broberg has an opportunity to go be a leader and kind of show off his talent a little bit. And the other thing that we need to remember too is with Edmonton, the only other reason why I think that they let those two walk, you got to worry about signing Leon Draisaitl. If you want him, you got to free up as much cap as you can get.
That's a great point. Great point.
You got to free up as much cap as you can get, and that to me is one of the only reasons why you bring in those two guys, Pokolzin and Emerson, because they're not as expensive, so you're shedding some of that cap. And right. I think they each Pokolzin I think might be a free agent at the end of this year. So you won't have to worry about him after this year. And Emerson, I think, is still on his ELC. I could be wrong about that, though. Again, but still, two much cheaper contracts. And these guys that you can kind of hide in the lineup that could potentially play well for Edmonton. And I mean, I don't see these moves getting them over the top, but I mean, you're going to also have to – they got to worry about having to sign Matthew Savoy or Savoy, however you want to say his last name, when his contract is up too. So that's, again, this is Edmonton kind of put themselves in a difficult situation. And I think not bringing these two back, as much as it's going to hurt the team now, in a big picture might have been a better move.
Well, one thing it does do, Brian, though, in terms of, in terms of like, is it a smart move by Bowman not matching these offer sheets? They do get a second-round pick for Broberg and a third-round pick for Holloway, and that's the Blues. It has to be the Blues, not a pick they acquired from another team. That's part of the conditions here when you talk about making an offer sheet and getting them at the bare minimum, is that they have to give their own. And they weren't atop of the standings. They weren't way down there, but that's going to be two good picks in the second and third rounds coming up in the 2025 draft for Stan Bowman, to where he could start modeling this team under his vision.
Right. And that I think really does help in his case a little bit in terms of these deals. I mean, inheriting a situation like this is kind of rough for a GM who's now got to try and figure out how to navigate, considering the fact that he's got Draisaitl that he's got to get it back on the books. I mean, you could not have asked for a tougher situation for a GM to inherit at this point in time. The only thing worse would be if McDavid's contract was up.
And these are two prospects that were drafted in 2019 and 20 respectively that haven't exactly lit the lap in their first taste in the NHL. So if Bowman can draft his own guys, you move on. I just think it's going to make, with losing Broberg, that's going to severely handicap him on the blue line, and you didn't really need to do that to this team.
Right. So, I mean, I feel like they might have to do more, like in terms of moving, in order to. Do you feel like they'd have to do more to get Draisaitl back under contract? I feel like they would have to. I mean, like, how many more moves do you think they got to make? before you think they have that salary that they would need for him.
I'm going to tell you 1 second. I'm actually pulling up their contracts as we speak.
Because I mean, like you said, I mean the Evander Kane being on the LTIR, the problem is you're not going to be able to trade that, because even if he does come back and he does decide to play, is he going to come back and be 100%? And do you want him in your organization? Because remember, Evander Kane does still carry baggage underneath all of that. So even if he has been behaved since going to Edmonton, the question is, like, do you trade him? And then GM's like, I don't know. Like, say if Vegas, I know this is just a hypothetical because Vegas probably wouldn't be doing that. Say he gets traded to Vegas and he had a gambling issue beforehand. Now he's going to Vegas. It's like, if I'm a GM, I'm looking at that like, I don't know about that one. Because if he does wind up playing, like, what's to say that he ends up being good on the ice, that he's not just thinking about making bets, and give our organization a bad name. So that's one thing about Kane that you have to worry about.
So there's a few upcoming UFAs for Edmonton, but it's not going to free up a ton of money. So some of these guys are probably going to wind up getting traded. Jeff Skinner's up at the end of the year. That frees up 3. Okay. Corey Perry's up at the end of the year. That's 1.1. Connor Brown frees up $1 million. Derek Ryan frees up $900,000. And then Ty Emerson actually becomes a UFA at the end of the year. He becomes a Group 6 UFA. And then you have to worry about Evan Bouchard, who's an RFA at the end of the year too. But Evan Bouchard, I think, is going to be a much cheaper option than Leon Draisaitl.
The Oilers getting Eberson, that makes a lot more sense now, right? So that way they get him all off the books too, and can further build the team. Maddie, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. Yeah. I still though, like, all right, so you have some cap that will be getting back to you, but like you said, not enough to get Draisaitl back under contract. So then the question is, who do you try and trade off now? You've traded away Cody Ceci in exchange for cheaper contracts. So what do you do? Who's your next move? Who would you say would you look at to move now?
The guys I'm looking at on this roster, maybe Victor Arvidsson.
He played pretty well.
Adam Henrique might be a trade target.
Henrique's solid depth.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're not going to trade Ekholm. Maybe Brett Kulak, however you say his last name. I mean, these are the more expensive guys too. I think Kulak was one of the cheapest ones at 2.75, and all these guys have about a year or two, so there's some control, so they can figure it out. I mean, or you can trade the 12.5 and trade McDavid, who's got 2 years left on his deal.
Sure, they'll just trade McDavid away.
We're going in the rebuild.
Yeah, we're just going to go into full-on tank mode here, folks.
Connie, you're gone.
Did you have fun in that Stanley Cup Finals, Edmonton, coming back from 3-0 just to lose? Because it's not happening again. Get out of here, McDavid.
So I was looking at Zach Hyman's contract, and his contract, he's entering year 4 of a 7-year deal that he signed back in 2021 for $38.5 million, and he's a $5.5 million annual salary cap. I don't know. That'd be tough to unload, but not impossible if you wanted to, get younger and move on from the 32-year-old.
I mean, maybe you could get a third team involved, possibly give up a pick in the draft coming up. I mean, it's not exactly a lovable situation, but maybe you think about parting with your first rounder in a situation like that.
Good.
I mean, it's not an ideal spot, and I would hate to have to do that if I was in his position, but you kind of have to grit your teeth and take it if you want to keep a guy like Leon Draisaitl around.
That's what she said.
Hey, before we wrap up tonight, boys, do you want to shift over to another Canadian team that made a big assertion?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Big news out of Montreal. They made a splash Monday afternoon and got a big name player from Columbus. Patrick Laine was traded to the Montreal Canadiens by the Blue Jackets, and the Blue Jackets, who also sent a second-round pick in the 2026 NHL draft to the Canadiens, received defenseman Jordan Harris.
Interesting.
I like this for all parties involved, and a lot of the reason is Laine is going to, well, I mean, it's a tough media in Montreal. It might be neck and neck with Toronto. Toronto's tough. But I like this because it's a no BS locker room with, quite frankly, one of the best personalities in hockey, one of the best character guys of his time in Martin St. Louis being the head coach. So, he's going to build a good culture, supportive locker room. Guys are going to have each other's backs. So that's one less thing that Laine is going to have to worry about. And, I love this for Columbus because they didn't have to take any of that contract for Patrick Laine. Hence the second rounder going back to Montreal with Laine. But I think Columbus got a good defenseman in Jordan Harris. I think he's a good second pairing peak defenseman. Showed some good signs in Montreal, did some good things. And I think this trade is going to work out for all parties involved. I think it's a really good hockey trade, and I think it's a great opportunity for Laine to kind of get his footing back and really show that he's not that far removed from being that 40-goal scorer he was in Winnipeg.
Right. He's had a bit of a rough go of it these last couple of seasons. So this is, like you said, a chance for him to kind of breathe new life into his career. So with that move, Columbus, they still have Johnny Gaudreau. Not that has ultimately resulted in them going back up the standings. Do you think that Columbus makes another move at some point? Do you think that they possibly try to move on from this whole thing and this experiment with Johnny Hockey, or do you think they'll try and build around him and try to see what they can find?
Yeah, I think they build around him. I think Laine just is a tough fit. And, maybe he does fit. And he's still young. He's 26. A lot of people in Philadelphia were disappointed that, this trade didn't come to our way. But he's tough for a locker room. And we've seen him move on from team to team. Maybe he finds a home for the Habs. We'll see. And he has time to turn it around for sure. Yeah, I think Columbus. I think Columbus builds around Gaudreau though. I mean, they have a financial investment there. It makes too much sense, and he's young himself still.
He is.
And it puts him in a young locker room.
True. And it's just one of those things of, okay, so now what do you do if you're Columbus? Because you went and got Johnny Gaudreau to hopefully kind of get you back up the standings, and it hasn't really worked out so far. So the question now is, okay, what do you do now to fix this problem that you're in? Maybe Laine was the first step in fixing the problem. Getting rid of him out of the locker room and maybe having an opportunity to kind of build around your main new star player.
I mean, you think about it this way. He's out of Columbus. He's out of one of the most boring cities in one of the most boring states in the country. I mean, it's always gray and dreary there. Ohio doesn't like Ohio. What do we want here? What are we talking about? But
the only person that likes Ohio is Dave Chappelle.
I don't think Dave Chappelle likes Ohio.
He lives there.
More reason for him not to like it. But I will say this though, real quick, Maddie, and then I'll let you go. Make your joke, and it's a much younger locker room. I think it's a much more steady locker room. He's going to wind up on a line with one of two guys, and both of which will make him that much better, and that's Cole Caulfield or Yuri Slafkovsky, who are two absolute young studs that have the highest of ceilings. And I think that's just going to be an opportunity for Laine to really kind of refine himself and recreate what he had in Winnipeg playing with. Who did he play with?
He played with Scheifele, and he played.
Oh, yeah, Scheifele and Wheeler. Yes. Yeah. Yep. I forgot about that.
Back in the golden era of the new Winnipeg Jets.
Don't get old. Don't get old, people. The mind really does start to go.
So before we finish up with Swoopy's comment here, I was going to say, though, there's so much to enjoy, though, in Ohio. I mean, sure, it may not be in Columbus, but you have the Factory of Sadness in Cleveland and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is also a Factory of Sadness. So you have two Factory of Sadnesses just sitting right there for you to enjoy.
Wait, what's the first one?
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Factory of Sadness.
Oh, is that actually what it is? The Factory of Sadness?
No.
You got Canton too.
The the Browns?
Oh,
Hello? Yeah?
gotcha.
Oh, come on.
Gotcha,
I don't
gotcha,
watch
gotcha,
football
gotcha,
and I
gotcha.
knew that. Come on.
I've never
I tried
heard
to
it
help you with the
referred to.
Canton reference. I tried to help you.
The only thing that helps me with Canton is remembering the Hall of Fame.
So,
Jesus. Can't find
Swoop.
any good help these days.
Swoopy saying, Swoopy saying,
Oh, man.
Bry, will Briere trade Lawton? I saw your post. Will they wait till the middle of the season?
Don't wait till the middle of the season. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, he's going to create that more. You want to create as much trade value for somebody that you absolutely can. And right now, I mean, I think his trade value is high, but if he can have a really, really solid start to the season, have some consistency moving into and towards the trade deadline in February, I think that's when you really see his value kind of skyrocket. And if Scott, if Sean Walker can get a first round pick to come back, oh man, imagine what you can get for Scotty Lawton there, the guy who actually has some value.
All right, so we thank everybody for joining us for this edition of Flyers Talk A2D here. This one flew right on by, and next week,
AG3, baby.
Yeah. Next week, we will once again bring you any major updates with the Flyers and also around the league as well as we continue to follow the dramas around Edmonton and their ever so love-hate relationship with the thing called the salary cap. And also keep you up to date on players like Patrick Laine and their ever so lovable love-hate relationship with the teams they're on. So we thank you. We were brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. Any aches and pains, Dr. Paul Vidal is who you want to go see to take care of that. We'll be back here next week, same time, same place, same channel, and we will be here to bring all of the news and information for the Flyers to you. Until then, you stay safe, you stay healthy out there. The season is so very close, boys. Training camps are getting real close to opening up. The excitement is building for a brand new season in the NHL. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace and love, everyone.
Have you seen my baseball?